Good evening. I'd like to welcome you to the proceedings of the Grand Rapids Public School Board of Education. It is Monday, June 3rd. Please rise and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Reverend Matias, can you please take the roll?
Mr. Ross.
He'll be joining us in just a bit.
Ms. Schottky.
Present.
Ms. Williams.
Present.
Dr. Baker.
Here.
Ms. Davis.
Here.
Dr. Flores.
Present.
Ms. Lewis.
Present.
Reverend Matias present. President Grant.
Present.
We have a quorum.
Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Support.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. All right. We have two celebrations this evening.
President Grant and members of the board, we have two celebrations this evening. The first is a recognition of the Grand Rapids Art Museum's language artist, and I would like to have Kurt Johnson come forward, and he will provide the background and provide introductions.
Good evening, Madam President Grant, Mrs. Evans, and distinguished board members. I'm going to try to speak a little slowly. I have my retainer in my mouth. Orthodontist told me I had not been wearing it enough. TMI. But tonight we get to share with you one of the more enchanting celebrations that happened during the school year, and so we're very excited about our special guests that are here today. And so we have a partnership with the Grand Rapids Art Museum that we really love, and we want to continue to have that flourish and thrive. And tonight you'll hear a little more about the Language Artist Program. And it's a program where really language arts meets creativity, meets imagination. And you're going to be taken on a wonderful ride of a piece here by our honoree tonight that's here with us today. And so I'm going to have Maggie share a little more in detail about how this program in partnership has worked with Grand Rapids Public Schools.
Thanks, Mr. Johnson. And thank you, Mrs. Evans, President Grant, and board members. We are super excited to have the Graham here, especially our honoree, Daniel Miguel Garcia, is one of the winners of the exciting program, which combines, as Mr. Johnson mentioned, language art skills and artistic creativity. So I know that we're all here to hear more. We also have our friends from the Graham here today. We have Emily Jarvie, and I'm going to pass it over to Miss Emily.
Thank you, Maggie. Good evening. Thank you so much for inviting us to your celebration this evening. We are incredibly proud of this program at the Grand Rapids Art Museum, and we're so thrilled to continue this partnership with Grand Rapids Public Schools. Since the program's implementation in 2010 and 2011, we've served nearly 15,000 school children through this program. And this year, we had 53 finalists submitted to the Grand Rapids Art Museum for our end of the year celebration in May. Danielson Miguel Garcia from Southwest Community Campus was one of our 2 overall program finalists, which is amazing. And we are so thrilled to have, for our summer exhibition that opens tomorrow at the Grand Rapids Art Museum, Danielson's work is going to be on display in our Education Center gallery, along with his writing. And so we hope that you have some time to come see the exhibition, to see Danielson's work in person at the Graham, and read his story. And there will be 26 other artists from participating schools on view as well. There's one finalist from each school that's participating. So I would like to introduce at this time Danielson Miguel Garcia to read his writing, and his artwork is on the screen behind you. We've also provided a set of postcards for each board member. Thank you.
Phil's Amazing Speed by Danielson Miguel Garcia. In a very hot place lived a creature named Phil. He was half cheetah and half cobra. Phil had a big purple hood, a long tail, and 2 sharp fangs. Phil was a weird, lazy creature. He lived in a grassy, rocky habitat. Phil was weird and lazy because he didn't run a lot, and he didn't care if he ate gross, nasty animal carcass. Carcass is rotten meat. One day, a feathery creature was spying on him. Nyam, 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 Phil chewed. The secretary bird laughed. Ha ha, he eats carcass. Phil was so sad that he cried. I want to go home. After that, the secretary bird told all the animals in Africa, did you know that he eats carcass? The hyena, giraffe, lion, elephant, rhino, other cheetahs, honey badgers, and antelopes all responded, no. Then all said together, ha ha, he eats carcass. So then Phil thought, and aha, he screamed, I'll run a lot so I can catch fresh meat. Phil didn't stop running, except in a dark night. Before sunset, Phil was training. Suddenly, the fast secretary bird left a note. Phil read the note, written in sand. It said, if you want to prove that you can run fast, prove it tomorrow. The next day, all big and small animals watched to see if Phil could catch fresh meat. When Phil saw the small antelope, there was his chance to show everybody he could run fast. He caught the small antelope. Then the secretary bird dropped his jaw, including everybody else. From then on, Phil could catch fresh meat. So the moral of this story is you can do anything if you believe in yourself.
Excellent. That's a great story. We'd like you to have an opportunity to shake everybody's hand. And go ahead. While Danielson is going around, we'd also like to recognize his family is here. His parents are here. And his parents are here. And also he's supported today by his classroom teacher and by his principal. So thank you again to Danielson and to the Graham for creating such an amazing opportunity for our 3rd grade students.
That was a really amazing story. Thank you for sharing with us.
President Grant. I just, as people get settled, I just want to really thank the Graham staff. So I've been able to work with their team because I want to duplicate this in Big Rapids, and they've been working with us. But really, the time and creativity is pretty incredible that all 3rd graders in Grand Rapids Public Schools go through that museum, and they work with them all to understand art and language. It's fantastic. So I appreciate your work.
Members of the board, we have Mickey Savage, who is here to provide background on the Nellie Stevens Award, and then she will also introduce the 2 recipients.
Thank you, Mrs. Evans. President Graham, Mrs. Evans, and members of the board. I'm pleased to be here tonight once again to present the Nellie Stevens Travel Award for the summer of 2019. Teachers with a minimum of 5 years of teaching experience with Grand Rapids Public Schools can apply for this award. We had 5 candidates this year that submitted information to us, and we did have a committee of instructional administrators that looked over this information and selected these 2 recipients to share the award this year. So I'd like to introduce to you our 2 award winners. Noemi Ariano, who is one of our bilingual interventionists at Cesar Chavez this year, and Christine Mahan, who is an English teacher at Ottawa Hills. And they will both be presenting to you a real brief synopsis of what their trips are and how it will benefit our students moving forward. Noemi?
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I just completed my 25th year of teaching, and I'm very excited. I've been at Cesar Chavez for 4 years. And since I've been there, I've noticed that there's an influx of indigenous students. So I felt the need to learn more about them so I can further help them. My trip will be to Oaxaca, Mexico in July. And I want to learn more about the culture, about the food, about the languages. And I want to just tell you about one of my students that I had at Cesar Chavez. He's a third grader. He came to our school. He could not write his name. He did not know his birthday. English is his third language. So he had a lot of challenges. And I worked a lot with him, and he did make some gains. But he was scared of English. We had a music program, and when everyone was singing, and he didn't know the words, so he just started crying. He was so frustrated. And I said, for this student, I want to learn more. I want to be able to help him more. And I want to share the knowledge I gained with my colleagues at Cesar Chavez. And my heart is in this district. And thank you very much.
Christine?
My name is Christine Mahan. I've been a teacher, an English teacher at Ottawa Hills for 20 years, all of my years at Ottawa. I was given the opportunity to go to Kiev, Ukraine, to work in a program to help high school kids learn English. And as you all know, over the past years, we've had a huge influx. We tried to have all the kids who English was not their first language, send them to Union. Lots of the parents are not letting them go across the city to do that. And so, I don't know, it was just put on my heart that I spend a lot of time with them. They do a lot of E2020, even though they're from Africa, not Ukraine. I do spend a lot of time with them and learning about them, and to be able to go to a place and actually watch what it's like to go to one of the camps and see how kids who have been put through war and have experienced those things and the trauma that they face, and trying to attempt to learn English, and that God would open a door that I could go there. I just really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Thank you for your commitment to the district. Have a great time.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Congratulations, yes.
Can't wait to hear back.
Absolutely.
It's gonna be awesome.
Okay. Do we have any public comment for agenda items?
Not at this time.
All right. Next, we have the secretary's report.
I just have one report, board committee meeting schedule. The Academic Achievement Committee meeting is scheduled on Thursday, May 2nd at 4 p.m., which is,
You mean Thursday, June 5th?
oh,
I
okay.
bet.
Thursday, June 5th, not May 2nd, yesterday.
Actually, that would be the 6th, correct?
At 4 p.m.
Yeah.
That's all I have.
6 at 4 p.m.
Oop,
We
4:30.
need to check that. It's actually, okay. It's this Thursday at 4:30.
So the 6th at 4:30, June
Yes.
6th at 4:30. Not May 2nd at 4 p.m. Right away.
Next, we have committee chair updates, and oh, I was ready for someone else to speak. It looks like I am up. So the City Board Liaison Committee spent time, I believe 2 weeks ago, meeting and talking about what our next steps for the Promise Zone. And there will be a superintendent appointed committee, and those appointments will come before the board soon, and the board will vote on those appointments. And then there's also a larger committee, a larger board that is, Mr. Hemholt, do you want to?
Sure.
Thank you.
Madam President, Mrs. Evans, members of the board. So the Promise Zone Authority is, by state law, there's 11-member authority, 9 of which are appointed by the superintendent with the approval of the Board of Education. One's appointed by the Speaker of the House, one's appointed by the Senate Majority Leader. In addition to that, though, there is a significant fundraising component related to this. And so as we looked at the individuals and organizations that have expressed interest in the Promise Zone, the idea is to create a Grand Rapids Promise Zone Commission that would be in addition to those 11 members. They would not have formal decision-making authority under the eyes of the law, but they would play a role as thought partners, fundraisers, and helping to ensure that we create this opportunity for the most number of students in the public and the private schools.
Thank you. I was going to say exactly that. Also, a few other things that happened at that committee. From the mayor's report, there was a conversation around the census. We know that the census and the process around collecting data is very sensitive. We, as a district, will be working closely with the city to collect that data, but also let our families know that we support them and that we want to protect them. So that is an ongoing conversation, but the collection of census data directly impacts the district and the district's budget. So it is very important that we do have access to that information. So we're talking about the best ways to go about that. Also, one other thing I will highlight is that the city and the district do have certain points of on a joint legislative platform. So we're working on what those items are, but there are certain issues that we would have a joint front that we would both actively support. And then there are also shared efforts like the joint use agreement, and language around that is still being crafted, but that will come before the board when it is approved by the committee.
Can I add one more thing?
Yes.
Were you done?
Go ahead.
No, I just want to make sure that we talked about our community's children.
Yes, the budget.
Right, and I'm not sure if especially the new board members, that there is this joint office that the city and GRPS oversee, and that's Our Community's Children, and that would include various levels of work, including assistance with the Children in Nature program, but also the 2 College Through College. And there was a discussion there about how to continue in more effective ways to align that work with the city commission and the school board. And but anyway, it's a great discussion. And if you don't know that that's part of our work, it's really significant. And there were some really good things that happened this month, like this Children in Nature and everybody getting on the river kind of thing. So.
Yes, and the budget for Our Community's Children is still being confirmed, but that does come before the board each year, and so we will be reviewing that budget soon and voting on that. Next is the Conference of Committee Chairs. So to give a little bit of background, this is a new committee that I requested be convened. It is basically a conference of all of the chairs from each committee. Policy is not there because policy is an ad hoc, but a lot of the conversation that we have will also connect to the work that is done at policy. So we had our first meeting last Thursday, and what that meeting entailed was just a review of the work that is happening in each committee, a really in-depth review, and conversation about what does the next year, what does the next 5 years look like on those committees. So what came out of that is really conversation, discussion about let's set a real definition as a board about what is the work of each committee. So we know that the work of committees differs depending on who is the chair, but what is the core work that must happen no matter who the chair is? So as you all are on your individual committees, you will start having that conversation. What are the things that we must do? What are the things that people must do when we leave? And really, a portion of this work is to say that at some point, the 9 of us won't be here anymore. So how are we really preparing the next board members that come behind us, setting up systems for them that help to make their work consistent and easier? So there was also, the bulk of that meeting was around the Academic Achievement Committee and several different processes that will be put into place. The bulk of that work won't happen at academic achievement or just at the conference of committees. I really want that to be full board work. I want all of us to be involved with that conversation of what do those processes look like. So for example, one of those processes would be the curriculum adoption process. How do we approve a new curriculum? Once the, what is the committee that would bring the curriculum to us?
Instructional council?
Yes, so that is not the work of the board, but once the instructional council has approved a curriculum, how are we educated about that curriculum and help to move that process along? Because we do need to know something about it when we approve the budget for that curriculum. So those are the type of conversations. We will set aside a work session for the Academic Achievement Committee to present some of these processes to us, and as a full board, we'll have that discussion and vote on what the next steps are. So that is a new committee I wanted you all to know about. Next, Mr. Ross is not with us for the Finance Committee. Okay, so the Legislative Committee.
We did not meet.
All right, and yes, Superintendent's report. Thank you. No, I was looking at the agenda for the last meeting. So, yes, Superintendent's report. Thank you.
President Grant and members of the board, we have 3 reports. I would like to ask John Helmholtz, Mel Atkins, and Bill Green to come up in that order. They will provide a report on district summer hours, Summer of Success programming, and USDA Summer Meals Program, respectively.
Great, thank you. I've been asked to just provide a quick overview over the district summer hours. The district summer hours will take effect the week of June 3rd, so starting today through August 9th, with the hours of operation from 7:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. Monday through Thursday. District offices are closed on Fridays. Regular hours of operation will resume on Monday, August 12th. Additionally, the first day of school for 2019-2020 is set for Tuesday, August 20th.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mrs. Evans, President Grant, and board members. I'm just here to briefly talk around our summer school. And so we just finished school, but we're starting into our summer session. Summer school begins June 17th and goes through July 18th. With no school on Thursday, July 4th. It would be a Monday through Thursday program to follow our summer hours that John just went over. And I'm going to really focus on really 3 parts. It's really an elementary program, a middle school, and a high school components to this as well. And as we know, as of the 3rd grade reading law going into effect next year, we are doing an intensive focus at the elementary level on current 2nd graders. That would be, upcoming 3rd graders in the fall, with a really 4 hours of instruction in reading with that. And so I've been working with Ms. Evans, the curriculum team, and the executive directors to really hone in on the skills that are needed. And I know Ready Gen is going to be one of the components one of the items that they're going to be using to support instruction. And so we're really looking forward to that as well. At the middle school level, it's going to be a focus on 3 components: ELA, math, and new this year is SEL, or social emotional learning. And so there's going to be there's going to be a 90-minute block for ELA, a 90-minute block for math, and kids are going to get really 45 minutes of instruction in SEL as well. With that. And at the high school level, it's going to be a credit recovery option. I'm going there. So if students fail one of the core classes or are, let's say, 1 or 2 classes away from graduating, they will have the opportunity to make up these credits during the summer as well. What I forgot to mention too is what we're doing this year is we're extending the number of buildings that the summer program is going to be offered at. And so we have 9 elementary buildings, 3 middle schools, and 1 high school. And one of the reasons why that is we want to keep students close to their home. Is we want, we feel that attendance will go up greater if you know where they're going. And so that's one of the strategies that we're implementing this year. Another strategy we're implementing is with staffing. It's staffing. We have looked at teachers' evaluations and teachers' effectiveness ratings and really invited some of the best of the best. And so we're excited. Some of the feedback we got last year in the evaluation was to make sure you have the most qualified teachers. And so we're very excited for the teachers that have accepted to join us in this summer and, for this 5-week journey with that.
Mr. Atkins, do we know when that summer school graduation is going to be?
That's a good question. I don't have it top of my head. I don't know if Mr. Lewis is. July 17th.
July 17th.
July 17th, and that's typically at Grupa High School, but we will send out a formal invite. To everyone.
Where will it be?
At Grupa High School, Grand Branch University, Perpetuity.
Prep. Okay.
Ms. Lewis doesn't like to miss any parties, so.
No. And there's other programs that supplement the programs I'm talking around. We have our Loop Extended Learning Program. We have EL. We have Sound Reading Summer Program, Newcomers, and there's various other programs, GRASP. We have programs for reading at home too, called Kids Read Now. And so if for some reason you can't get into one of these other programs, and there is space available still, but if you can't, there's other programs too that we know we can serve you as well.
Can you, you said that the schools are extended this year, and you told us how many schools there were this year, but how many had there been in the past? So
Yep,
yeah.
Good question. So in the past, there were 3 elementaries, really, now there's 9, and then there was, I believe, 2 or 3 middle schools and 1 high school. And so we really wanted to take advantage of this, if we're going to really focus on the second graders, that we can keep them closer to home and serve actually more second graders than we have ever in the past.
Okay, thanks. That's a great improvement.
Yep.
Can you tell us briefly just some of the numbers that you're hoping or that at least have been invited to some of these programs?
Yep, and so for second graders, we invited over 700 second graders. I would say we were close to right around 500 that have signed up. And then for middle school, we have invited just over 400. I'm going to say it's close to just over 300 that have signed up so far. In high school, we have 2 sessions, a total of 500, and we have 500 slots at this time.
Are we operating any programs for special needs students this summer?
We are. I'm glad you brought that up. And so extended year programs are part of the what's happening in summer, but also what happens if someone has, for example, IEP or needs, we will service them working with the special ed team and make sure they have what they have if they sign up for one of the traditional programs as well.
Can you share some information about the Kids Read Now program?
Yep. So Kids Read Now is a new program that we're piloting this year in, I want to say, 10 schools, elementary schools. It's a K through 3 reading initiative, again, to support the 3rd grade reading law. And what happens is kids get up to 9 books to read at home. At their reading level, they get to pick the books on their own at their Lexile level. And then you start out with 3 books, and then once you get done with those, it's a text message that the caring adult will send, and then the mail additional books will come in the mail for them to read during the summer.
Are there any materials that are provided to the parents to support them in that?
Yep, and so there are materials that go home with it. Some schools were able to, at the end of the year, have a family night. To explain this. If that couldn't happen, we have people on staff that can answer questions as well. If families have questions around what to do, to support them with the reading at home as well.
questions. Thank you very much, Mr. Atkins.
Good evening.
Evening.
Good evening.
President Grant, Ms. Evans, board members. I'd like to thank you for this opportunity. My name is Philip Green. I am the food service director for the district, for this opportunity to speak with you regarding our summer feeding program. As many of you may know, a number of our students have food insecurities, not only during the course of the regular school year, but definitely during the summer months. The summer feeding program offers an excellent opportunity to bridge that gap between the end of school and the beginning of the next school year. When I look back at the data last year, we had 26 locations. As was stated earlier, we now have, with the increase of number of GRPS schools participating, we have 36 sites. So again, a nice little increase of 10 different sites there. To give you an example of the importance of this program, in 2018, now this is of course through the whole summer feeding program, so it does include some sites outside of GRPS schools. For breakfast, we served over 17,000 meals. Lunch, we served close to 40,000 meals. And snack, we served close to a little over 13,000. So a lot of meals are being served on a daily basis, giving these kids opportunity for nutritional meals during the course of the day. This program is also open to any individual in the community that is 18 years or younger. So at these sites, if a mother walked in with 3 or 4 children that was not enrolled, by USDA standards, we have to feed them, okay? And normally that would be, of course, an entree, a fruit, a milk, so it's a complete meal. It meets the USDA guidelines. And this is the number of years that we've been running this program. We're pretty excited about it. We're still getting calls daily for individuals that want to be added to the list, which is a good thing, except you do have to revise the application to the state and get them approved before they can start serving meals. So. Any questions? Also, any site that we have will have this somewhere in the front of the building. Anyone that's driving around and sees this sign, they know that this is a site that's available to them. Also, we have given these to every school that we have and the other sites. All these go on the windows, the doors, wherever the location is, to make sure people are aware that the meals are being served there. Again, we had a good year last year, looking for a more extensive year this year, because our goal is to get these kids fed. Great quote on here, I can't take credit for it, wish I could. It says, "Food that's in when school is out." So like I said, I can't take credit for it, but again, we're looking forward to feeding as many kids as we can. If you know of any families that could use this program, also send them to the direction of the different schools, the number of schools that we have available that we can feed them. So we're looking forward to it.
And where can families find the list of locations?
It'll be on our website, Food Nutrition Services website. We've done some PR with it. We're being interviewed again tomorrow for that. Press release has gone out. So we've done a lot.
Social media.
Social media. And biggest thing is word of mouth. So if we can get the word out there, we can really bolster these numbers and get these kids fed.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for your work.
Thank you.
Okay, we have a number of action items this evening. The first one is the superintendent search firm RFP. I want to begin by asking if anyone has any questions or comments that they would like to address. It is really just the language that we went over in the work session. Ms. Pitts went in and created the updates that we wanted to see, the corrections that we wanted to see. Is there any comment or questions about the final draft? Okay. Do I have a motion to approve the final draft of the superintendent search firm request for proposal?
So moved. Sorry.
Support.
Representative Matias?
Okay. Mr. Ross is excused. Ms. Shotke?
Yes.
Ms. Williams?
Yes.
Dr. Baker?
Yes.
Ms. Davis?
Yes.
Dr. Flores?
Yes.
Ms. Lewis?
No.
Reverend Matias, yes. President Grant?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay. Next, we have the probationary employee termination. You all have a draft of a resolution. We won't review the specific content in the resolution, but are there any questions or points for discussion that anyone has? Okay, do I have a motion to approve the resolution for the probationary employee termination?
So moved.
Support.
Okay. Mr. Ross is excused. Ms. Shotke?
Yes.
Ms. Williams?
Yes.
Dr. Baker?
Yes.
Ms. Davis?
Yes.
Dr. Flores?
Yes.
Ms. Lewis?
Yes.
Reverend Matias, yes. President Grant?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Next, we have blanket purchase renewals for 2019-2020. I believe Mr. Oberst is going to give us some information on that. It looks like you're going to be here for a while.
Yeah, over the next few weeks, you'll be saying way too much of me. So anyways, actually, and good evening, President Grant and Mrs. Evans, board members. Purchase and agenda actually comes first, and then the blanket.
You're correct. Thank you.
So, purchasing agenda is part of your packet, and again, all these items, as you know, went before the Finance Committee last, good evening, Mr. Ross, last Tuesday, I guess it was, and they recommend then they all come to the board for their approval. So the purchasing agenda, and I guess I just, there isn't anything out of the ordinary there. Some of the last end of year adjustments and purchases. Mr. Atkins just talked about some of the reading material which is being purchased for summer school. The only bond project-related item on the purchasing agenda is for some security upgrades, if you will, construction-related at this building here, primarily on the second floor in our payroll area and security area there. So I'll certainly address any specific questions anyone might have.
All right, do I have a motion to approve the purchasing agenda?
So moved.
Support.
Okay. Mr. Ross is excused. Ms. Shotke?
Yes.
Oh, Mr. Ross.
He's been here all the time. You've been counting him absent. What's up with you?
I know it's my glasses. Let's see.
Yes.
Thank you. Ms. Shotke?
Yes.
Ms. Williams?
Yes.
Dr. Baker?
Yes.
Ms. Davis?
Yes.
Dr. Flores?
Yes.
Ms. Lewis?
Yes.
Matias, yes. President Grant?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Now for the blanket purchase.
Blankets,
renewals.
absolutely. Again, the blanket and for the new, for Ms. Davis in particular, Mrs. Williams heard this at the Finance Committee, but the blanket purchasing renewal, every year is a number of expenditures that the district incurs that are ongoing. Large expenditures typically billed periodically throughout the year on a monthly basis, quarterly basis, things like that. So instead of coming to the board every time one of those payments exceeds the approximately $25,000 threshold for board approval, at the beginning of the year, we try to estimate for those known expenditures what we think we're going to spend, list them here on this blanket purchasing list, and then get your approval before the year starts so we can start spending against those blanket approval. Again, many of these things are, as an example, are deemed transportation. You know, that's an ongoing, we have a contract, we have an approximate amount that we know we're going to spend that contract. They bill us periodically throughout the year. That's on it. The list itself, there are 3 columns to the far right. The first, just to explain here, the 2018-19 proposed budget column is the actual budget that was approved by and amended by this board over the past year. So that's what we had expected to spend during the current 2018-19 school year. The middle column, 2018-19 budget, is the actual expenditures against that through about April of this year. And then the last column there, the far right, the 2019-20 proposed budget, is what we are estimating to spend in the 19-20 year, and is the amount in the areas we'd like for your approval. The total of the 2019-20 budget of the blanket is about $37.5 million. If you look at our general operating budget and our special education budget, which encompass most of our operations, there are probably in the area of 110 million of non-employee related expenses. So the blankets we're asking for, the estimated blankets we're asking for, is maybe about a third or just over a third of those total expenses that get paid on blankets. Throughout the year, we historically will come and make some adjustments to those blankets if we're seeing we're spending more than we'd anticipated. Generally, if our spending is going to be more than 10% of the approved blanket on this list, we come back to the board to get your approval to raise that blanket. And that happens occasionally. A good example this year is in our HR budget, where we have budgeted on the blanket for temporary services, and we used a couple of different temporary service providers during the year, and we had blankets on both of them. Well, during the course of the year, we found out one organization actually provided better quality candidates, so we started spending more with that and less with the others. So we had to come back for an increase in the blanket for one of them, but the other one we're not going to spend the blanket because we're using less of that. So there's things like that happen throughout the year that, again, we will come back to the board if we need to increase those blankets. It's a summary of what we're asking for tonight, so any questions I'd be happy to address if I can.
Do I have a motion to approve the blanket purchasing renewals for 2019 and 2020?
Motion.
For the,
Motion to approve the blanket purchase order.
Support. Okay, Mr. Ross.
Yes.
Ms. Shotke.
Yes.
Ms. Williams.
Yes.
Dr. Baker.
Yes.
Ms. Davis.
Yes.
Dr. Flores.
Yes.
Ms. Lewis.
Yes.
For Matthias, yes. President Grant.
yes.
Motion carries.
Next, we have A-Light transition.
Yeah, the Elite transition. The district, for a long period of time, has used a third-party administrator to administer primarily its health benefit plans. And that organization, for about the last 10 or 12 years, has been had been at one time a local organization called NextGen. That was acquired by a national organization, I believe 2 years ago, called PlanSource. So PlanSource is the name of the current provider. Because they have been a provider for a long period of time, and I know I've talked before to the finance committee of this board that many of our services even though we're not required by either by board policy or by law to bid out on a regular basis. It's good business practice to do that. So since 5 years I've been here, we've done that on several occasions, and we talked about looking at doing the same thing with the third-party administrator. We spend in the neighborhood of $180,000 to $200,000 a year in the services they provide. We also, frankly, the last few years have seen diminished customer service with them. We had some challenges we had to go through a couple of years ago with the open enrollment. So we decided this should be a good time to take that step and look at potentially switching to another provider. So we worked with our health insurance consultants, Aon. They identified, I believe it was 8 potential providers of these services, developed an RFP, released that. We had responses from 5 of those organizations. We looked at the initial responses, narrowed that down to 3. Actually had 2 of the 3 come in and do a presentation. The third, we did essentially a phone presentation, if you will, and then decided through that due diligence, and again, it was our insurance consultants I mentioned, our benefits manager, Amy Robinson, Ms. Pitts, our HR assistant superintendent, and myself were involved in that process and decided on Alight. Alight will provide, we think, the best level of service. It looks like, from the pricing perspective, on the base services the first year, there's probably a savings of $15,000 to $20,000, so we'll save some dollars ourselves. They are positioned, upon approval by this board, to begin the transition. Now, if we do change to Alight, if it's approved, PlanSource will continue throughout the calendar year, and then Alight will begin the transition, data transfer, but Alight will handle the early enrollment, which happens in October-November timeframe, and then take over officially, full-time, if you will, in January. So I believe they will begin their transition process in July and be set and everything ready to go for the early enrollment for our health benefit plan. So what we're asking tonight is for the board to approve execution of a contract. Ms. Pitts will spearhead that on our side, and we've already reviewed contracts and in connection with our insurance, Aon, our insurance advisors, and then execute a contract and move forward with this transition.
Is this employee health insurance for all of our
Yes.
employees?
Yes.
So
Yeah.
it'd be like MESA for a lot of us who were teachers or are teachers?
Yeah.
Okay.
And the health insurance pool for the non-union employees.
Sorry?
The West Michigan Health Insurance Pool is what we use for the non-union employees in the district.
Okay, do I have a motion to approve the execution of the contract for a light transition?
So moved.
Okay. Mr. Ross?
Yes.
Ms. Schatke?
Yes.
Ms. Williams?
Yes.
Dr. Baker?
Yes.
Ms. Davis?
Yes.
Dr. Flores?
Yes.
Ms. Lewis?
Yes.
Reverend Matias, yes. President Grant?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Next, we have Budget Amendment 2, the General Operating Fund.
Yeah, I'll handle all 3 of those budget amendments as one, if you
Okay,
will. So
great.
just to remind the board that there are 3 resolutions: General Operating Fund, Special Revenue Fund, Debt Retirement Fund. Again, those are the 3 funds of the district that we are required by law to provide budgets for. You approve those budgets every year. Anytime we want to make an amendment to any of those 3 budgets, we have to get your approval also. So back in January, February, we brought Amendment 1 to these 3 areas. And I think I alerted you at that point in time, likely we'd have Amendment 2 about this time frame, and here we are with Amendment 2. So what I'd like to do is kind of go in reverse order. The Debt Retirement and Special Revenue Fund are pretty straightforward, as they normally are. I also I forgot to mention that it will take a separate action, so 3 separate actions on each of these amendments for each of these funds. So If you go to your packet and page back to the amendment to the debt appropriation section, let's handle that first. That's very, very simple and straightforward. This is a fund that accumulates the property tax revenue to pay our debt service, so the interest and principal payments on our debt service. The only adjustment from Amendment 2 on that particular fund, if you look at Exhibit 1, you'll see the middle column, Amendment 2, a $652,000 number, both in the revenue section and down the expenditure section. That is simply the bond issuance cost for the 2019 bonds that we just issued and closed on 2 weeks ago. So that would include the legal fees associated with that, accounting fees, the underwriting fees with Stiefel and the co-underwriter, bond insurance, and our financial advisor fees. So they total $652. We obviously got the cash in the bank, and so that is the only adjustment resulting from Amendment 2 for the debt service, debt retirement fund. Any questions on that? Okay. Let's jump to then the special revenue fund, which is the section just before that in your packet. Again, special revenue fund, the two major operations in that are the special ed center programs, which, as we all know, will cease to be part of GRPS next year, and our friend Phil and the food service fund, which is entirely funded with federal dollars. So there's two other smaller funds, GRASP and the Hausman Field Fund. I will tell you, Amendment 2, the GRASP and the Hausman Field Fund did not have any adjustments from Amendment 2. The adjustments for Amendment 2 are only in the special revenue, the special ed center programs and the food service. And it's primarily just adjustments relating to employee-related costs, where we, like we talk about every year, where we have a number of open positions and we try to fill these positions, and sometimes we do, sometimes we don't. So as we get close to the end of the year, Amendment 2, in many cases, are all these fund or general operating fund, this fund, are related to employee adjustments for positions we didn't fill. There's typically an adjustment potentially to contracted services as a fill-in for those people we cannot hire. So the amendment to the special revenue fund, again, only in the special education center programs and food service. Primarily, the bigger ones are employee-related. It has an impact to increase the fund balance by about $129,000. Fund balance, there's no minimum requirements in the special revenue fund, so the net number is not that significant, the $128,000. Any questions I can answer on that particular fund? Okay. Then we'll move to the general operating fund. Again, this is the fund that houses the day-to-day operations of the district. The most complex of the funds and the one we typically have most adjustments to. If you look just past the resolution language, you've got Exhibit A, which has the financial, the revenue and the expense side, made up of the Amendment 1 budget in the first column, the adjustments related to this Amendment 2 we're looking at, and then what the amended budget will be in 2018-19 if Amendment 2 is accepted tonight. I will start just past the schedule, just past those financial statements titled Memo at the top. You can see at the very top of that, we show the impact on the general fund balance. The fund balance beginning back in June of 2018, after audit, was almost $15 million. The original fund, the original budget used about almost $2.5 million of that. Amendment 1, used another $2.1 million. And Amendment 2 is projected to use about just over $1 million more of that to get down to a year-end fund balance expected of $9.2 million before audit. That is about in terms of the early warning and the board policy, it gets us down to about 6.31% general fund balance on unrestricted revenue. The board policy is a goal of 10% plus or minus 5%. The early warning minimum is 5%, so we are still within those parameters. Briefly, in terms of where we're seeing the adjustments, the revenue side, again, on that same page, it's titled Memo. If you look at the section, we have the revenue broken up into local, state, federal sources. Adjustments, a big one, the local sources, the Medicaid program through the ISD. We are going to get some more dollars than we expected, $950,000 positive adjustment to that general operations column as it relates to Medicaid. I will remind you that the grant column, rather than the middle column, that handles all our grant dollars, which are our private grants as well as title money and at-risk dollars from the state. Just to remind you that the grant column has no impact on fund balance. Whatever revenue we recognize is the expense that we also recognize, so it has a zero impact. All the impact on the fund balance is in the general operation column. Athletic does also, but that's a small fund. Down the state sources, we trued up the membership revenue for some Section 25 losses. Those are students that were counted on our fall count date, and then after that date moved to additional districts. The time frame it takes, all districts deal with it. There's a reporting to the state. When it's all sorted out, we had a net loss of about 32 students related to what they call Section 25 losses. So that's just an adjustment of revenue. Just some other minor revenue adjustments in the general operations column. The grants column revenue adjustments are primarily to reflect what we think the actual expenditures are going to be for the year. So we true up if we're going to spend less, we recognize less revenue. So you see many of those in the grants column. You see many of those adjustments are negatives to reduce revenue, but we'll see a corresponding reduction in expense on the next page. Then under the federal sources, again, similarly in the grants column, you'll see primarily Title I adjustments for carryover dollars we'll take into the next year. All told, at the very bottom there you see totals. So the general operations, we actually are projecting an increase in revenue of about $479,000. You can see the decreases in the other two columns. So total net decrease in revenue of all those columns is about $233,000. Let me just stop there before we get to the expense side and address any questions that any of you might have. Okay, thank you. Turn the page or scroll down, whatever you're looking at, and we have similar adjustments on the expense side. First is the instruction, we call our instructional area. As I mentioned earlier, many times in the Amendment 2, as well as Amendment 1, we're making primarily a lot of the larger adjustments are employee-related, the true-up actual employees and purchase services. We see some of that in that first section of instructions. You'll see actually an increase in salary and benefits, both in the general operation and the grant side. Some decrease in substitution costs. The projected tuition costs, that is our cost for that's an adjustment to our cost for the center-based special education programs. As you know, as a self-contained fund, we look at all the costs to run those programs, deduct the revenue that comes in that program, the remainder, the excess costs, then gets billed out to all the local districts, including us, based on the number of students we have in that. So we've done frankly a great job the last number of years, certainly since I've been around, the last 5 years, in reducing the cost of that program, as well as we've reduced the number of students that are in that center-based program, being able to move more of them into the general education population as appropriate. So the total cost around those programs has decreased for all of us, and that $100,000 adjustment just reflects that, our best guess as we near the end of the school year here. The support services, and this was a little bit of an anomaly this year. That's happened since the First Amendment. Again, the first adjustment you see there is a $684,000 related to employee-related costs. We had some additional estimated costs related to our Go Math, which is a new math curriculum that was introduced this year, and Montessori training, about $349,000. We had a bad year as relates to primarily vehicle repairs. You'll see that $670,000 of repairs, and everyone's aware of the bad winter we had, especially the last 6 or 8 weeks of the winter. That took a toll primarily on many of our vehicles and our snow removal equipment, and just had a lot of repairs that were unanticipated, above average, and of course we couldn't predict that till it happened, and resulted in an increase in expense of about $670,000. Little increase in purchase services. Again, that's primarily related to vacant positions with our, in all areas of the district, both in the teaching, education areas, our service, building maintenance, even the business office. Financial software implementation, we talked about that. I brought an adjustment to that, I think last month or 2 months ago, for the business office software. We've been working on it for a year and a half now. Utility costs, again, that very, very cold winter resulted in higher utility costs all around. And then we also had, we had 2 box trucks that were in the neighborhood of 15 to 20 years old that just, there was breakdowns earlier in the year, got to the point where it just was not efficient to repair those anymore. And so we made an unbudgeted purchase of 2 trucks, a total about $81,000. That happened, I believe, in March. So that is the nature of most of the expense adjustments in the general operations column. Under support services, again, in the grants column, that's just reflecting the reduced revenue we talked about. And then the other category, you can just see some minor adjustments. So that first column all totaled additional expense of about $1.5 million. The additional revenue offset that to get to that impact on fund balance of about just over $1 million. So I will take a break and entertain any questions you might have on that. Those.
I have a question. I think I spoke about it at the Finance Committee with regards to more details in that other adjustment under support services. Can you share information with us tonight?
I can. And that, okay, if you look on the expense grid we just talked about, under the support services section there, the middle section, just above the total support line, you'll see other adjustments of just over 98,000. I'm not sure what page it is for you guys, but.
Yeah, page 4, if Ms. Williams said.
Okay, under support services.
Yeah, the 98,119 you see just above the total. There's a question in the Finance Committee from Mrs. Williams of the day, what is that? And that really consists of about 25 different accounts we've adjusted up and down for minor amounts. Some of the larger ones is an increase in mailing and postage costs for some of the mailings we've done, advertising, some additional advertising and marketing costs, reduction in printing and binding costs we'd estimated, increase in our fuel and gas costs of about $25,000. We budget every year, outside of our bond money, some replacement fixed assets, primarily furniture. We're trying to spend any of the capital-related costs eligible to be used bond funds out of the bond fund. So it's about $50,000 in furniture is a expense we had budgeted that we're not going to use. So that reduced that. We also have, primarily from the past, some receivables. Some of them relate to when we had the child care center back here, and we're charging for that. Some bills that weren't paid. So we wrote off some bad debts we couldn't collect. That also falls in that category. So none of them are large enough to sit out there separately. So we just kind of net them all together, as I mentioned, 25 accounts to get to the $98,000. Does that give you some additional clarification, Mrs. Williams? Got that? Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, do I have a motion to approve the budget amendment 2 for the general operating fund?
So moved.
Support.
Okay. Mr. Ross?
Yes.
Ms. Shotke?
Yes.
Ms. Williams?
Yes.
Dr. Baker?
Yes.
Ms. Davis?
Yes.
Dr. Flores?
Yes.
Ms. Lewis?
Yes.
Mayor Matias, yes. President Grant?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Do I have a motion to approve budget amendment 2 for the special revenue fund?
So moved. Support.
Mr. Ross?
Yes.
Ms. Shotke?
Yes.
Ms. Williams?
Yes.
Dr. Baker?
Yes.
Ms. Davis?
Yes.
Dr. Flores?
Yes.
Ms. Lewis?
Yes.
Mayor Matias, yes. President Grant?
Yes.
Motion carries.
And finally, do I have a motion to approve the budget amendment 2 for the debt retirement fund?
So moved.
Support.
Mr. Ross?
Yes.
Ms. Shotke?
Yes.
Ms. Williams?
Yes.
Dr. Baker?
Yes.
Ms. Davis?
Yes.
Dr. Flores?
Yes.
Ms. Lewis?
Yes.
Mayor Matias, yes. President Grant?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Next, we have the easement resolution agreement with the city of Grand Rapids.
Yeah, again, let's just talk about these together. Although I'll get, much like what you just did, they'll take two separate motions for these two easements. And Ken is in the audience if I need his help, but these are pretty straightforward. The first is the easement with Sibley School. I believe you have information in your packet that details that out, or along a sidewalk at Lane Avenue, compensation about $2,600. And then the other easement is with DTE at Brookside School along Kennel Shade Drive. Again, compensation there about $8,500. So essentially, easement gives up use of the property to someone else, which is why the board needs to act on that as a resolution. So any particular questions about these easements? Great.
Okay, do I have a motion to approve the easement resolution agreement with the city of Grand Rapids?
So moved.
Support.
Mr. Ross?
Yes.
Ms. Shotke?
Yes.
Ms. Williams?
Yes.
Dr. Baker?
Yes.
Ms. Davis?
Yes.
Dr. Flores?
Yes.
Ms. Lewis?
Yes.
Mayor Matias, yes. President Grant?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Do I have a motion to approve the easement resolution agreement with DTE? So moved.
Support.
Mr. Ross?
Yes.
Ms. Shotke?
Yes.
Ms. Williams?
Yes.
Dr. Baker?
Yes.
Ms. Davis?
Yes.
Dr. Flores?
Yes.
Ms. Lewis?
Yes.
Mayor Matias, yes. President Grant?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Owen.
Thank you.
Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Support?
Okay. Mr. Ross,
Yes.
Ms. Shotke,
Yes.
Ms. Williams,
Yes.
Dr. Baker,
Yes.
Ms. Davis,
Yes.
Dr. Flores,
Yes.
Ms. Lewis,
Yes.
Reverend Matias, yes. President Grant,
Yes.
motion carries.
Okay, I have 4 quick discussion items for you all. A reminder that there is a public hearing scheduled for the 2019-2020 budget, and that has been set for June 17th at 5:30 p.m. We agreed on that in February, so much earlier in the year. Please let us know if you are able to, well, let us know if you're not able to attend, because we need to make sure that we can take a vote at that meeting. Next, discussion around the MASB annual membership renewal. Is there anyone who would like to discuss renewing that or not renewing that?
I definitely would like to renew it. Do you want me to make a motion to that effect?
Well, let's see if anyone else has a comment before we make a motion. But if there's no disagreement, we can make a motion.
we have to
I don't
vote?
think
We
we,
never have
no,
to make a vote.
nope, I don't think we,
Discussions.
We have other memberships too.
yeah. So I think that is fine. We will apply for that renewal. 2 other things. I would like to request that the June 10th work session be scheduled for 5:30 instead of 4:30. Is there anyone who that will not work for? You'll also receive an amended agenda soon for that work session. Okay. Last thing is Julie is away at the KISD school board meeting that we all fought over going to. And so she texted me some results. David Drake and Bill Joseph have been validated for their next 6-year term, and also Matthew Redding was validated to complete the partial term that he was already serving. So just a quick update, because we did have discussion around who we were supporting. Do we have public comment for non-agenda items?
I do not.
All right. Have any comment this evening? No, thank you. Dr. Flores?
Yeah, just for recording in the public record and exercising board member privilege, a couple of our former employees who are retired, their father passed away, and that Ernesto Garcia Sr. is his name. He and his wife Yali sent their 9 children to the Grand Rapids Public Schools. The two children served our district also as building managers in some of our buildings, and then Tito's nephew serves on the Board of Education, and so just to acknowledge that loss.
Ms. Davis?
It's hard for me to remember when we last met what's happened, but I do want to mention that I attended the ELL awards ceremony at Union High School, as well as Reverend Matias, and I believe you were there. And it was just a wonderful ceremony. It was wonderful to be a part of that. Lots of kids were recognized. Lots of 4.0 and higher grade point averages, which was impressive. And I also thoroughly enjoyed being a part of graduation ceremony. So I was very honored to be a part of just seeing all of those kids and their successes. So.
Dr. Baker?
Yeah, just appreciate all the work that's going to happen this summer and all the people that are working to keep kids learning all summer long. So and nourished.
No comment.
Mr. Ross? Ms. Shockey?
No comment.
Reverend Matias?
Yeah, I just want to really congratulate the 2 teachers who are going to have their own summer school, so to speak, and then come back and report, and then use that to inform their teaching or transform their teaching. it was exciting to be part of the graduation process again, and it's a reminder of how much students and their families depend on the public school system, and just the diversity of where they're going, and the impact that they're going to make. It's just really quite impressive to be part of that, at least influencing or part of that, and so it's very exciting.
Ms. Williams?
I'd like to agree about the privilege it was to attend the graduations and thank all of the staff for making that experience classy and positive and one that they will look back on fondly. So thanks to all of the staff. It was amazing.
Ms. Lewis?
I would like to thank Dr. Gorman, especially because some of us went to 8. He went to 16. So I have to give him an extra hand for that. I was so pleased at graduations because of the excitement and the enthusiasm, not only from the kids, but from the people in the stands. And, you know, for some of those kids, that might have been the first high school graduation that any family member ever experienced. And you could tell from the enthusiasm from the audience. And I am always so grateful to be a part of such a wonderful experience for our young kids. And I would also like to congratulate all the teachers who survived another school year, and especially the teachers that my 2 granddaughters have had, the school experiences they've had, and I'm just hoping that every parent, grandparent in the district can feel as strongly about Grand Rapids Public Schools as my daughter and her husband and I do about the education and experiences that our kids are getting here. So thank you for that.
Thank you. No comment, meeting adjourned.